Thank you for viewing the virtual information session for the Mississauga Reinforcement Project. This presentation has been prepared by Stantec Consulting Limited on behalf of Enbridge Gas Incorporated. Welcome. You may pause the presentation at any time to review the slides. A copy of the slides is available for download from the Resources tab. Questions and comments can be submitted using the questionnaire on the Resources tab, and an Enbridge Gas or Stantec representative will respond. If you would like to receive future project updates, please complete the contact information section of the questionnaire. Enbridge Gas is committed to involving Indigenous communities, agencies, interest groups, and community members in this proposed project by providing you with up-to-date information in an open, honest, and respectful manner, and will carefully consider your input. Enbridge Gas provides safe and reliable delivery of natural gas to more than 3.9 million residential, commercial, and industrial customers across Ontario. Enbridge Gas is committed to environmental stewardship and conducts all operations in an environmentally responsible manner. The purpose of the information session is to consult with Indigenous communities and engage with members of the public and regulatory authorities regarding the proposed route, potential impacts, and mitigation measures. The information session also provides an opportunity for individuals to ask any questions and provide comments to representatives from Enbridge Gas and Stantec. In addition to this virtual information session, an in-person information session will be held at the Clarkson Road Presbyterian Church, located at 1338 Clarkson Road North, Mississauga on July 24 from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Enbridge Gas recognizes the diversity of Indigenous communities who live where we work and operate. We understand from history the destructive impacts on the social and economic well-being of Indigenous peoples. Enbridge Gas recognizes and realizes the importance of reconciliation between Indigenous communities and the broader society. We are committed to building positive and sustainable relationships with Indigenous peoples, based on trust and respect and focused on finding common goals through open dialogue. Enbridge's Indigenous Peoples Policy lays out key principles for establishing relationships with Indigenous groups, including recognizing the importance of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples in the context of existing Canadian law, recognizing the legal and constitutional rights possessed by Indigenous peoples in Canada, and the importance of the relationship between Indigenous peoples and their traditional lands and resources. Engaging early to achieve meaningful relationships with Indigenous groups by providing timely exchanges of information, understanding and addressing Indigenous project-specific concerns, and ensuring ongoing dialogue regarding its projects, their potential impacts and benefits. Aligning Enbridge's interests with those of Indigenous peoples through meaningful, direct Indigenous economic activity in projects corresponding to community capacity and project needs, where possible. Enbridge Gas is proposing to build a new 6-inch steel natural gas pipeline and related customer facilities to meet the requirements of its existing customers. This proposed pipeline project is designed to meet the needs of existing customers that require additional natural gas to support their growth and/or are looking to upgrade their current energy source to natural gas. Enbridge Gas is currently evaluating 3 route options. Depending on the route chosen, the pipeline would be between 0.35 kilometers and 3.1 kilometers long. The project is proposed to be located in the existing municipal road allowance and on customer properties, with additional easements, temporary working spaces, and lay-down areas potentially being required during construction. This slide shows an image of the project's proposed preliminary preferred route and 2 alternative route options, which were developed to assess the potential environmental and socioeconomic impacts. This preliminary map does not represent the final project scope or design of the project. All proposed routes would require the following: rebuilding 2 existing Enbridge Gas customer stations, located entirely on existing customer properties. A new natural gas service pipeline may need to be constructed on the customer's property to connect to the future new customer station, to be determined. The preliminary preferred route would consist of approximately 3.1 kilometers of 6-inch diameter natural gas pipeline. Beginning at Winston Churchill Boulevard and Royal Windsor Drive, will travel along Winston Churchill Boulevard towards Lakeshore Road for about 2.2 kilometers. The route then turns northeast and travels along Lakeshore Road west for about 0.9 kilometers, ending south of one existing Enbridge Gas customer property. Alternate Route 1 would consist of approximately 0.35 kilometers of 8-inch diameter natural gas pipeline. Beginning at Winston Churchill Boulevard and Royal Windsor Drive, the pipeline would travel northeast for about 0.35 kilometers along Royal Windsor Drive, ending at a tentative location where a new natural gas distribution station would be constructed. This route would also require the purchase of private land, at least 40 meters by 40 meters footprint, for the construction of a new natural gas distribution station, and require decommissioning an existing natural gas distribution station near the intersection of Winston Churchill Boulevard and Royal Windsor Drive. Alternate Route 2 would consist of approximately 2.20 kilometers of a 12-inch natural gas distribution pipeline and approximately 2.2 kilometers of 12-inch diameter natural gas pipeline. The route would begin on the west side of Winston Churchill Boulevard near Stockholm Road and travel south for approximately 1.35 kilometers to Royal Windsor Drive. The pipeline would continue west along north side of Royal Windsor Drive for approximately 0.42 kilometers to a tentative location where a new natural gas distribution station would be constructed. Approximately 0.48 kilometers of 12-inch diameter natural gas pipeline would also be constructed, starting at the new distribution station and traveling east to the southeast corner of the intersection of Winston Churchill Boulevard and Royal Windsor Drive. This route would also require the purchase of private land, at least 40 meters by 40 meters footprint, for construction of a new natural gas distribution station, and require decommissioning an existing natural gas distribution station near the intersection of Winston Churchill Boulevard and Royal Windsor Drive. The pipeline routing constraints include natural environmental features, topography, socioeconomic features, landscapes, and land availability. Opportunities to reduce potential impacts include the ability to follow existing linear infrastructure, such as road allowances and utility corridors. The preliminary preferred route and alternative routes follow existing linear infrastructure, such as existing municipal road allowances, and avoid, to the extent possible, existing environmental and socioeconomic features. An interactive map that shows these routing alternatives can be accessed at www.solutions.ca/Mississauga Reinforcementia. The environmental study and associated report will be completed according to the Ontario Energy Board's environmental guidelines. The study will undertake engagement to understand the views of interested and potentially affected parties, consult with Indigenous communities and key stakeholders to understand interests and potential impacts, be conducted during the earliest phase of the project, identify potential impacts of the project, develop environmental mitigation and protective measures to avoid or reduce potential impacts, and develop an appropriate environmental inspection, monitoring, and follow-up program. It is anticipated that the environmental report for the study will be completed in Q4 2024, after which Enbridge Gas may file a leave to construct application. The application to the Ontario Energy Board will include the following information on the project: the need for the project, environmental report and mitigation measures, project costs and economics, pipeline design and construction, land requirements, and consultation with Indigenous communities. The Ontario Energy Board will then hold a public hearing to review the project. If the Ontario Energy Board determines that the project is in the public interest, it will approve the construction of the project. If approved, construction could begin as early as Q2 2026. Additional information about the Ontario Energy Board process can be found on their website. Consultation and engagement are key components of the environmental report being completed as part of the Leave to Construct application. It helps to identify and address Indigenous community and stakeholder concerns in the early stages of a project. Enbridge Gas submits a project description to the Ministry of Energy and Electrification, which uses it to determine potential impacts on Aboriginal or treaty rights, and identify Indigenous communities that Enbridge Gas must consult with throughout the project. Input from this virtual information session will help select the pipeline route and create mitigation plans for the final design and construction. Once the Leave to Construct application is submitted to the Ontario Energy Board, any party with an interest in the project can participate in their review process. This slide shows the environmental study process that Enbridge Gas follows as part of the Ontario Energy Board's environmental guidelines. As seen on the diagram, the project is approaching the end of Phase 1. Enbridge Gas is committed to protecting the health and safety of all individuals affected by our activities. Enbridge Gas will provide a safe and healthy working environment and will not compromise the health and safety of any individual. Enbridge Gas' goal is to have no incidents and mitigate environmental impacts by working with our stakeholders, peers, and others to promote responsible environmental practices and continuous improvement. Enbridge Gas is committed to environmental protection and stewardship and recognizes that pollution prevention, biodiversity, and resource conservation are key to a sustainable environment. All employees are responsible and accountable for contributing to a safe working environment, fostering safe working attitudes, and operating in an environmentally responsible manner. While most of the pipeline route will be constructed within municipal road allowance, some circumstances requiring access agreements, permanent easement, or temporary working spaces during construction could result in the need for additional land. Enbridge Gas has a comprehensive landowner relations program that uses a dedicated lands advisor who would provide direct contact and liaison between landowners and Enbridge Gas. Be available to the landowner during the length of the project and throughout construction activities. Address the concerns and questions of the landowner. Act as a singular point of contact for all landowners. Address any landowner questions and any legal matters relating to the temporary use of property, access agreements, permanent easements, and impacts or remedies to property. This slide shows an infographic of typical natural gas pipeline construction procedures. Please press pause to review these procedures. When you are ready to move to the next slide, please press Next. The natural gas pipeline construction process includes various procedures, as described in the previous slide. Photos 1 through 4 show a typical Enbridge natural gas pipeline, pipeline trench, and the procedures of backfilling, cleanup, and restoration. This slide shows an infographic of typical horizontal directional drilling procedures. Please press pause to review these procedures. When you are ready to move to the next slide, please press Next. Horizontal directional drilling may be used when working in the vicinity of environmentally sensitive features and is a potential method of construction for the crossing of railways, watercourses, and unevaluated wetlands. The process is less invasive than typical trenching methods, as the pipeline is installed underneath the sensitive feature, requiring no in-water works. Enbridge Gas has completed many significant watercourse crossings by horizontal directional drilling, implementing the mitigation measures listed in the slide. The pipeline is designed to meet or exceed the regulations of the Canadian Standards Association and the applicable regulations of the Technical Standards and Safety Association. Enbridge Gas takes many steps to ensure the safe and reliable operation of its natural gas pipeline network, such as designing, constructing, and testing pipelines to meet or exceed requirements set by industry standards and regulatory authorities, continuously monitoring the entire network, and performing regular field surveys to detect leaks and confirm corrosion prevention methods are working as intended. The project will mainly be constructed on existing municipal road allowances. As a result of construction, private businesses, agricultural operations, and residential land along the pipeline route may be impacted. Potential socio-economic effects of construction include temporary increases in noise, dust, and air emissions, increased construction traffic, temporary impairment of residential and/or commercial property use, and ornamental vegetation clearing. Some of the mitigation measures that could be implemented during construction include providing access across construction areas, restricting construction to daylight hours, adhering to applicable noise bylaws, implement a traffic control plan, use fencing for safety, implement dust control measures, and revegetate disturbed areas. This slide provides additional examples for your review. Cultural heritage features such as archaeological finds and heritage buildings, fences, and landscapes may be encountered during construction. If required, detailed field surveys will be conducted prior to construction by independent, third-party archaeologists and cultural heritage professionals. Some of the mitigation measures that could be implemented include archaeological assessment of the construction footprint, with review and acceptance from the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism. Cultural Heritage Assessment for built heritage features and cultural heritage landscapes of the construction right-of-way, with review and comment from the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism. Reporting of any previously unknown archaeological or historical resources uncovered or suspected of being uncovered during excavation. Enbridge Gas understands the importance of protecting watercourses, therefore, will implement recognized mitigation measures to reduce potential environmental effects. Potential effects on aquatic environments include disruption and alteration to aquatic species and habitat, and increased erosion, sedimentation, and turbidity resulting from vegetation removal. The following are examples of mitigation measures that may be implemented to minimize the potential effects of construction. Implement measures to avoid harmful alteration, disruption and destruction to fish and fish habitat, as required by Fisheries and Oceans Canada. Install erosion and sediment control measures. Obtain and abide by all agency permits and approvals. Conform to fish timing window guidelines. Trenchless drill within or near environmentally sensitive features. For in-channel construction, protect aquatic species through methods such as flow diversion and/or dewatering, fish rescue planning, etc., and management of sedimentation and turbidity. Restore and seed disturbed areas to establish habitat and reduce erosion, if necessary, and replant vegetation along waterways. During construction, natural environmental features such as wildlife habitat and vegetated or wooded areas may need to be crossed. Potential effects include damage to vegetation and wildlife in the construction area. Prior to construction, surveys, which may include species at risk surveys, will be conducted to determine opportunities for wildlife habitat to exist. Tree removals will be conducted outside of migratory bird windows, typically from April 1st to August 31st, to the extent possible. Construction areas will be clearly marked to avoid accidental damage. Permits from conservation authorities, municipalities, and agencies will be secured as required, and the conditions outlined will be followed to minimize damage and disturbance to vegetation and wildlife. Serving hundreds of communities in Ontario, we at Enbridge Gas consider ourselves strong community partners who believe in and are committed to consultation and engagement. During the project's planning stages, Enbridge Gas has consulted and will continue to consult with Indigenous communities and engage with local landowners, government agencies, and other interested parties that could be impacted by the project. After this virtual information session is complete, Enbridge Gas plans to complete our environmental report by fall of 2024. Once complete, Enbridge Gas plans to submit it to the Ontario Energy Board in early 2025, along with other leave to construct documents. If a leave to construct is required, Enbridge Gas anticipates receiving a response from the Ontario Energy Board in Q4 2025. Permitting, pipeline design, and construction planning will then take place, with Enbridge Gas planning to start construction in Q2 2026 and be in service by Q4 2026. On behalf of the project team, thank you for listening to the virtual information session for the Mississauga Reinforcement Project. If you have any questions or comments, or you would like to be kept up to date on the project, please complete the questionnaire located in the Resources tab by August 21, 2024, to be considered as part of the environmental report that will be submitted to the Ontario Energy Board. Please note that comments will still be received after this date and will be reviewed and considered during the planning and design phase as applicable. To return to a specific slide, please press the menu button and select the slide you wish to review. To close the presentation, please press the Save and Exit button. For more information about the proposed project, please visit our project website using the link shown on this slide.